I never thought my parents would ambush me with legal documents over Sunday dinner, but there they sat with my sister Sarah presenting papers that would hand her 50% of my physical therapy clinic, plus complete management control. My heart hammered against my ribs as Dad explained how Sarah deserved financial stability and family support, while Mom nodded approvingly at their months of secret planning. They spoke as if this hostile takeover was already decided, just waiting for my signature to make it official. But as they pushed the documents toward me with confident smiles, I reached calmly into my briefcase and pulled out my own legal papers. "Before we discuss your proposal," I said quietly, "let me show you Clause 3.2. The color drained from Dad's face instantly. Growing up in the tree-lined suburbs of Denver, I discovered my calling while watching my grandmother Helen struggle with mobility after her stroke. She had been this vibrant woman who gardened daily and chased us grandchildren around her backyard, but suddenly she could barely lift her left arm or walk without assistance. During her rehabilitation at the local therapy center, I witnessed something magical. Physical therapists helped her regain strength and coordination through patient-skilled guidance. By the time she returned home, she was pruning her rose bushes again and teaching me how to plant marigolds. That experience shaped everything. I threw myself into science classes at Jefferson High School, volunteering at the senior center and shadowing therapists whenever possible. My parents, Margaret and Robert, thought my dedication was excessive. They preferred I focus on dating and social activities like my younger sister Sarah, who spent her time painting watercolors and writing poetry for the school literary magazine. After graduating with honors, I enrolled at Colorado State University for their physical therapy program. The coursework was demanding, requiring deep understanding of anatomy, kinesiology, and therapeutic techniques. While my classmates partied on weekends, I worked 3 jobs to pay tuition and living expenses. Monday through Friday, I staffed the campus recreation center, helping students with fitness equipment and injury prevention. Saturday evenings, I waited tables at Romano's Italian restaurant, memorizing orders and rushing between kitchen and dining room until my feet ached. Sunday mornings, I provided companion care for elderly residents at Sunset Manor, helping with daily activities and offering emotional support. My parents constantly criticized what they called my work obsession. During holiday visits, Margaret would sigh dramatically about my packed schedule, suggesting I was missing out on the real college experience. Robert questioned whether physical therapy offered sufficient earning potential, hinting that I should consider more lucrative careers like business or law. Meanwhile, Sarah coasted through art school at Denver University, changing majors twice and relying on their financial support for tuition, housing, and spending money. After graduation, I joined the rehabilitation team at Denver General Hospital. The work was challenging, but incredibly fulfilling. I specialized in post-surgical recovery and sports injury rehabilitation, developing skills with patients ranging from professional athletes to elderly accident victims. Each success story motivated me further, whether helping a construction worker return to his job after back surgery or enabling a teenage dancer to perform again following a knee injury. For 5 years, I saved aggressively while building my professional reputation. I lived in a tiny studio apartment with secondhand furniture, drove a reliable but aging Honda Civic, and packed lunches instead of buying restaurant meals. Every spare dollar went into my clinic fund, growing slowly but steadily through careful budgeting and disciplined spending habits. Meanwhile, Sarah embarked on a series of creative ventures with varying degrees of family support. First came the pottery studio in the Arts District, where she rented space and equipment to create handmade bowls and vases. The business lasted 8 months before closing due to insufficient sales and high overhead costs. Next, She attempted freelance graphic design, creating logos and websites for small businesses. While her artistic skills were genuine, her business acumen proved lacking. She struggled with client communication, missed deadlines, and had difficulty pricing her services competitively. Her most recent endeavor involved selling handmade jewelry through an online platform. She spent countless hours crafting intricate earrings and bracelets, photographing them for social media, and managing customer inquiries. Despite her creative efforts, sales remained sporadic and barely covered material costs. Throughout each business failure, Margaret and Robert provided financial safety nets, covering her rent payments, car insurance, grocery bills, and various emergency expenses. During this period, I researched potential clinic locations throughout the Denver metropolitan area. I studied demographic data, competition analysis, and traffic patterns to identify optimal sites for a physical therapy practice. After months of investigation, I discovered a perfect opportunity in Lakewood, a rapidly growing suburb west of downtown Denver. The space had previously housed a dance studio featuring high ceilings, excellent natural lighting, and spacious rooms ideal for rehabilitation equipment. Large windows faced the parking area, providing visibility for potential clients and creating an inviting atmosphere. The location sat within a medical plaza anchored by family practice physicians, specialists, and a diagnostic imaging center ensuring steady referral opportunities. The monthly rent was substantial but manageable given the prime location and built-in patient pipeline. I calculated that with proper marketing and quality service, the clinic could achieve profitability within 18 months. The landlord, Mr. Peterson, was impressed by my business plan and professional credentials, agreeing to lease terms that included modest tenant improvements and flexibility for specialized equipment installation. Just as I prepared to sign the lease agreement, my phone rang with an unexpected call from Margaret. Her voice bubbled with unusual excitement as she began discussing how wonderful it would be for both girls to work together in the family business. Confused, I asked what she meant by family business, since I had never mentioned involving anyone else in my clinic plans. That's when I learned about Sarah's deception. During recent family gatherings, my sister had been sharing fabricated text messages suggesting I had promised her a partnership role in my future clinic. She showed our parents carefully edited screenshots that appeared to show me requesting her involvement in marketing, client relations, and business development. The messages were convincing forgeries that painted a picture of eager collaboration and shared entrepreneurial dreams. Margaret continued enthusiastically explaining how Sarah's creative background would complement my clinical expertise perfectly. She envisioned Sarah handling social media marketing, designing promotional materials, and creating a welcoming atmosphere that would differentiate our clinic from sterile medical environments. Robert joined the conversation, expressing his pride in both daughters, pursuing joint business ownership, and suggesting this partnership would strengthen family bonds while ensuring mutual financial success. The shock left me speechless for several moments as I realized the depth of Sarah's manipulation. She had not only lied about our non-existent discussions, but had created false evidence to support her deception. Worse still, our parents had built elaborate plans around these fabrications, assuming partnership details were already settled between us. The next morning, I called Margaret back to clarify the massive misunderstanding, explaining that I had never promised Sarah any role in my clinic. The conversation quickly turned heated as she accused me of being dishonest about my previous commitments. She insisted that Sarah had shown her multiple text conversations where I enthusiastically discussed partnership opportunities and asked for her creative input on business development. When I requested to see these supposed messages, Margaret became defensive, suggesting I was trying to back out of family obligations now that my clinic was becoming reality. She lectured me about loyalty and shared success, implying that excluding Sarah demonstrated selfishness and ingratitude for years of family support during my education and early career. Robert joined the discussion via speakerphone, adding his perspective on the situation. He suggested I was suffering from entrepreneurial pride and needed to recognize the value of collaborative approaches to business building. He mentioned several successful family enterprises in our community and emphasized how blood relatives could be trusted in ways that business partners could not. The pressure intensified when they began questioning my decision-making abilities, suggesting that managing a clinic alone would prove overwhelming without experienced support. They pointed to my intensive work schedule at the hospital as evidence that I already struggled with work-life balance, implying that additional business responsibilities would lead to burnout and poor patient care. Despite their arguments, I moved forward with signing the lease and beginning clinic preparations. The next several weeks involved intensive physical labor and financial investment that tested every aspect of my preparation and determination. I spent my life savings on essential equipment, purchasing treatment tables, therapeutic exercise machines, ultrasound devices, electrical stimulation units, and countless smaller tools required for comprehensive patient care. The physical setup proved exhausting and demanding. I painted every wall myself, working late into the evening after my hospital shifts to transform the former dance studio into a professional medical facility. My hands developed painful blisters from gripping brushes and rollers for hours, and my back ached from constantly bending to reach baseboards and corners. Installing specialized flooring required learning new skills and renting industrial equipment. The rehabilitation area needed non-slip surfaces that could withstand heavy machinery and frequent cleaning, while the consultation rooms required quieter materials for patient comfort. I watched online tutorials and consulted with contractors determined to minimize labor costs wherever possible. Equipment assembly challenged my mechanical abilities and patience. Each piece came with detailed instruction manuals requiring precise measurements, electrical connections, and calibration procedures. I spent entire weekends assembling exercise equipment, frequently discovering missing parts or compatibility issues that required return trips to suppliers. During this intensive preparation period, the clinic's financial reality became increasingly stressful. My savings account dwindled rapidly as equipment costs exceeded initial estimates and unexpected expenses appeared constantly. The electrical system required upgrades to handle therapeutic equipment loads, building permits cost more than anticipated, and professional liability insurance premiums strained my budget further. The first month of operations brought only 12 clients, barely generating enough revenue to cover basic operating expenses. Rent, utilities, equipment leases, and insurance consumed most of my income, leaving little for personal necessities or emergency reserves. I survived on peanut butter sandwiches and ramen noodles, cutting every possible corner to keep the clinic operational. To save money on housing, I began sleeping on a narrow cot in the clinic office, showering at the nearby gym, where I maintained a basic membership. The arrangement was uncomfortable and isolating, but it reduced my living expenses to nearly zero, while ensuring I was always available for early morning or late evening appointments. Local competitors immediately recognized my clinic as a threat and began aggressive pricing strategies designed to undercut my services. Established practices offered promotional rates and package deals that I couldn't match without operating at a loss. Several larger clinics circulated rumors about inexperienced new providers and the advantages of choosing established facilities with proven track records. Determined to differentiate my services through superior convenience and personal attention, I began accepting appointments that other clinics refused. I opened at 5 in the morning for clients who needed treatment before work, and I scheduled sessions as late as 10 at night for those with demanding schedules. This flexibility gradually built a reputation for exceptional service and patient accommodation. However, the extended hours took a severe toll on my physical and emotional well-being. I worked 15 to 16-hour days, regularly grabbing brief naps between appointments and surviving on caffeine and determination. Weight loss became noticeable as stress and exhaustion affected my appetite, and dark circles under my eyes reflected chronic sleep deprivation. Family dinners became increasingly uncomfortable battlegrounds, where Margaret and Robert continued pressing their agenda for Sarah's involvement. They framed their arguments in terms of concern for my health and well-being, suggesting that business partnership would reduce my workload and improve service quality through shared responsibilities. Margaret frequently mentioned how Sarah could really contribute to the clinic's growth through social media marketing and creative promotional strategies. She pointed to successful local businesses that used artistic branding and suggested my clinic would benefit from Sarah's aesthetic sensibilities and marketing education. Robert approached the issue from financial and strategic perspectives, arguing that expansion opportunities would require additional management bandwidth that I couldn't provide while maintaining patient care responsibilities. He suggested Sarah could handle administrative tasks, vendor negotiations, and business development activities that would free me to focus on clinical work. During these conversations, Sarah maintained a carefully crafted persona of quiet victimhood, sighing occasionally about her financial struggles while avoiding direct requests for clinic involvement. She spoke wistfully about needing meaningful work and stable income, painting herself as a struggling artist who simply needed the right opportunity to prove her value. The emotional manipulation was sophisticated and persistent, wearing down my resistance through constant repetition and family pressure. They presented their arguments as expressions of love and concern, rather than self-serving demands, making my refusal seem stubborn and ungrateful. After 3 months of gradual progress, I felt cautiously optimistic about the clinic's trajectory. Client numbers were growing steadily through word-of-mouth referrals, and several physicians had begun recommending my services to their patients. The long hours and financial sacrifices seemed to be paying off as my reputation for quality care and scheduling flexibility spread throughout the community. That optimism was shattered when I discovered a series of devastating negative reviews on my Google business listing. The reviews claimed unprofessional treatment, poor facility conditions, ineffective therapy techniques, and billing irregularities. Each review was detailed and specific enough to seem legitimate, describing supposed experiences with convincing medical terminology and realistic patient concerns. The timing was particularly damaging, coinciding with my efforts to expand marketing and attract new referral sources. Potential clients who searched for my clinic online encountered these negative reviews prominently displayed, creating immediate doubts about service quality and professionalism. Several scheduled appointments were canceled, and new inquiry calls decreased dramatically. Desperate to understand the source of these attacks, I enlisted help from Jake, a former college classmate who worked in cybersecurity. He traced the IP addresses associated with the fake review accounts and made a shocking discovery. All of the negative reviews originated from the same internet connection registered to an address I recognized immediately. They were coming from Sarah's apartment, revealing the depth of her betrayal and willingness to sabotage my professional reputation for personal gain. Confronting Sarah about the fake reviews led to the most explosive argument in our family's history. I drove directly to her apartment after receiving Jake's investigation results, my hands shaking with anger and disbelief as I knocked on her door. When she answered, her face immediately betrayed her guilt as she saw the printed evidence in my hands. Initially, Sarah attempted denial, claiming she knew nothing about the negative reviews and suggesting someone else must have used her internet connection. But as I presented the detailed timestamps and account information, her composure crumbled completely. Tears streamed down her face as she collapsed onto her couch, admitting to what she called a moment of desperation. Through her sobbing confession, the full scope of her jealousy and entitlement emerged. She explained how watching my success while struggling with her own failed ventures had created overwhelming resentment and financial panic. She convinced herself that if my clinic encountered serious problems, I might become desperate enough to accept her partnership offer and share the profits she felt she deserved as family. Sarah begged for forgiveness with dramatic promises to delete all the fake reviews immediately and never interfere with my business again. She claimed the sabotage was completely out of character and represented a temporary lapse in judgment brought on by mounting bills and career frustration. She swore on our grandmother's memory that she would respect my boundaries and support my success going forward. Exhausted by months of family conflict and desperate to restore some semblance of peace, I made the mistake of accepting her apology without demanding concrete consequences for her betrayal. I wanted to believe that confronting her directly would end the interference and allow us to rebuild our relationship on honest terms. However, the damage to my clinic's reputation proved extensive and long-lasting. The negative reviews remained visible for weeks, despite Sarah's deletion efforts cached in search engines and business directories that updated slowly. Several potential clients specifically mentioned seeing concerning reviews when they chose competitors instead of scheduling initial consultations. Lost business from the reputation attack was devastating during my clinic's vulnerable early growth period. I estimated losing approximately 30% of new client inquiries during the month following the fake review campaign. Existing clients remained loyal, but the pipeline of new referrals slowed dramatically just as I was building momentum. To rebuild trust and overcome the negative publicity, I was forced to offer significant discounts and promotional packages that further strained my already tight finances. I provided free initial consultations, discounted treatment packages, and extended payment plans to demonstrate quality and rebuild confidence in my services. During this vulnerable period, Margaret and Robert intensified their pressure campaign with renewed arguments about my need for family support. Margaret suggested that the negative review incident proved I couldn't handle business challenges alone and desperately needed experienced assistance with reputation management and crisis response. Robert framed the situation as a learning opportunity, suggesting that family-based businesses would be naturally protected from external attacks through shared loyalty and mutual support. He implied that working with outsiders or remaining completely independent left me vulnerable to competitive sabotage and professional isolation. Their manipulation became more sophisticated as they repositioned themselves as mediators rather than advocates for Sarah's involvement. They offered to help resolve the misunderstanding between their daughters and find solutions that would benefit everyone involved, presenting themselves as neutral parties seeking family harmony. Meanwhile, I discovered that Sarah's interference extended far beyond fake reviews into active networking misrepresentation. She had been attending local small business association meetings, Chamber of Commerce events, and women's entrepreneur gatherings, introducing herself as someone planning to co-manage a family physical therapy clinic. Several business professionals approached me at community events, expressing enthusiasm about meeting Sarah and their anticipation of working with our partnership. She had distributed business cards with her name and my clinic's information, creating the impression that our collaboration was already established and operational. This networking deception proved particularly damaging because it involved face-to-face interactions with people who could provide valuable referrals and professional opportunities. Sarah's misrepresentations created confusion about my clinic's ownership structure and decision-making authority, potentially complicating future business relationships. The financial pressure from reduced income and increased marketing costs forced me to pursue additional funding options I had hoped to avoid. I applied for a small business loan through my local bank, providing detailed financial projections and business plans to justify the borrowing request. The loan application process required extensive documentation and personal guarantees that put my car title and remaining savings at risk. I signed agreements making me personally liable for the debt regardless of business performance, understanding that failure could result in complete financial ruin and damaged credit for years. Interest payments and loan fees added another layer of monthly expenses to my already strained budget, but the additional capital allowed me to invest in professional marketing services and reputation management strategies necessary to overcome the fake review damage. Sleep became increasingly elusive as anxiety about the clinic's survival consumed my thoughts during the few hours I allocated for rest. I experienced panic attacks during quiet moments, sudden waves of overwhelming fear about losing everything I had worked to build. The physical symptoms included racing heartbeat, sweating palms, and difficulty breathing that sometimes required stepping outside for fresh air. Despite these challenges, I maintained the highest possible standards of patient care, determined that my clinical work would speak louder than any negative publicity or family interference. Each successful treatment outcome and satisfied client provided motivation to continue fighting for the clinic's survival and growth. During this period, Sarah launched what she presented as another independent business venture, a lifestyle blog focusing on wellness and family entrepreneurship. She wrote posts about supporting family members in business, overcoming obstacles through collaboration, and building successful ventures through shared vision and mutual support. The blog featured photographs taken outside my clinic, carefully composed to suggest her involvement without explicitly making false claims. She wrote about inspiring family businesses and shared quotes about sisterhood and partnership that readers naturally associated with our relationship. Through affiliate marketing links and sponsored content, Sarah began generating modest income from the blog, while simultaneously building her personal brand around themes directly connected to my clinic's success. She positioned herself as an expert on family business dynamics and collaborative entrepreneurship without revealing her actual lack of involvement in my operations. The most alarming discovery came through a phone call from my business insurance company. A claims representative informed me that someone had filed an injury report suggesting Sarah was hurt while working at my clinic and sought compensation for medical expenses and lost wages. The claim included photographs of Sarah at my clinic, witness statements from Margaret confirming her employee status, and detailed medical reports describing injuries allegedly sustained during work activities. The documentation was sophisticated and comprehensive, clearly prepared with legal guidance and strategic intent. This wasn't simply family pressure or emotional manipulation anymore. It represented potential insurance fraud that could result in criminal charges against me if investigators concluded I was operating with unreported employees or maintaining unsafe working conditions. My professional license, business insurance, and personal legal standing were all suddenly at risk due to my family's escalating desperation and willingness to commit fraud for financial gain. The insurance investigation forced me into a nightmare of legal complexity and financial drain that threatened everything I had built. I immediately contacted Jessica Brooks, an attorney specializing in small business protection and insurance defense, who explained the serious implications of Sarah's fraudulent claim. According to Jessica, the insurance company was required to investigate any worker injury report thoroughly regardless of obvious inconsistencies or suspected fraud. During the investigation period, my business liability coverage could be suspended, leaving me personally exposed to any legitimate claims or accidents. More seriously, if investigators concluded I was intentionally misrepresenting employee relationships or safety conditions, criminal charges could follow. The legal fees for proper defense consumed my emergency business fund within the first 2 weeks. Jessica's hourly rate was necessary, given the complexity of insurance law and potential criminal implications, but each consultation and document review cost hundreds of dollars I couldn't afford to lose. Gathering evidence to prove Sarah's deception required extensive documentation and witness coordination. I needed security camera footage showing she was never actually employed at the clinic, financial records, proving no payroll or tax obligations related to her supposed work, and sworn statements from actual patients and colleagues confirming they had never seen Sarah working in any professional capacity. The investigation process disrupted daily operations as insurance representatives conducted interviews and site inspections. Clients became concerned about the clinic's stability when investigators asked detailed questions about employee safety protocols and working conditions. Several long-term patients expressed worry about continuing treatment during what appeared to be a legal crisis. During this chaos, Margaret and Robert scheduled what they called a family crisis meeting to address the insurance situation. They arrived at my apartment accompanied by Sarah, who appeared fragile and apologetic, dressed conservatively, and speaking in subdued tones that contrasted sharply with her usual confident demeanor. Margaret immediately began explaining that Sarah never intended to cause legal problems or jeopardize my business. She claimed the insurance filing was simply a desperate attempt to access medical care after a genuine injury, and Sarah mistakenly thought family business insurance could provide coverage since she couldn't afford individual health care. The story was carefully crafted to portray Sarah as a victim of the American healthcare system rather than a calculating fraud perpetrator. Margaret emphasized how expensive medical bills had created panic and poor judgment, suggesting that family insurance seemed like the only available option for necessary treatment. Robert contributed a more strategic perspective, explaining that he had been consulting with Harold Martinez, his attorney friend, about family business structures that could legitimize Sarah's insurance coverage and prevent future legal complications. He presented detailed research on partnership agreements and family corporation models that would clarify employment relationships and provide proper legal protections. Their proposal essentially used the legal crisis Sarah had created as justification for the very partnership arrangement they had been pressuring me to accept. Robert suggested that formalizing Sarah's role through legal partnership would resolve the insurance investigation while providing the business structure and family stability they had always advocated. Margaret added emotional pressure by describing how the stress was affecting the entire family and creating divisions that could become permanent if not resolved quickly. She suggested that the legal problems proved I needed professional management assistance, and Sarah's background in marketing and administration could provide exactly the support necessary to prevent future crises. The manipulation was sophisticated because it addressed my immediate legal concerns while advancing their long-term agenda for family control of my business. They framed partnership as a practical solution to current problems rather than an opportunistic exploitation of manufactured crisis. Meanwhile, the insurance investigation continued for weeks, requiring constant documentation and legal response that drained both my time and financial resources. Jessica worked diligently to prove Sarah's fraud, but the process was slow and expensive, consuming attention I needed for patient care and business development. The stress began affecting my clinical performance in subtle but concerning ways. I occasionally mixed up appointment times or forgot to return patient calls, promptly minor errors that were completely out of character for my usually meticulous approach to professional responsibilities. Several clients commented on my apparent fatigue and suggested I should consider reducing my workload or taking vacation time. Sarah's fraudulent claim was eventually dismissed after 6 weeks of investigation, but the damage to my reputation and finances was substantial. 3 major client contracts were terminated due to concerns about business stability and legal complications. The medical practice group that had been my largest referral source decided to recommend other clinics until my legal issues were completely resolved. Professional relationships throughout the local healthcare community suffered as rumors spread about family conflicts affecting business operations. Colleagues who had previously collaborated on difficult cases began maintaining distance, unwilling to risk their own reputations by association with ongoing legal problems. The psychological impact of constant crisis management and family betrayal created anxiety symptoms that interfered with sleep and daily functioning. I experienced frequent headaches, digestive problems, and muscle tension that required conscious effort to manage during patient interactions. The irony of providing healing services while struggling with stress-related health issues was not lost on me. During this vulnerable period, Sarah's public relations strategy evolved to include social media content about healing family relationships and supporting women in business. She gained attention from local lifestyle bloggers and women's networking groups, positioning herself as someone overcoming family conflict through personal growth and professional development. Her blog posts carefully avoided specific details about our situation while building sympathy for her struggles and admiration for her resilience. She wrote about the challenges of finding meaningful work, the importance of family forgiveness, and the value of turning mistakes into learning opportunities. This content strategy proved effective in building her personal brand and social media following. She was invited to speak at a women's entrepreneur meetup about collaborative family ventures, using carefully selected photographs from outside my clinic as backdrop for her presentation about overcoming obstacles and building bridges. The growing irony was that Sarah was becoming locally famous for expertise in family business relationships while actively sabotaging the actual family business she claimed to understand. Her public success through deception added another layer of frustration and helplessness to my struggle for legitimate business survival. The most devastating discovery came through a casual conversation with my landlord, Mr. Peterson. During a routine building maintenance issue, he mentioned how reassuring it was to know that family management would soon be improving the clinic's financial stability and operational reliability. Confused by his comment, I asked for clarification, and Mr. Peterson revealed that Margaret had been meeting with him regularly over the past month. She had presented herself as a concerned family member, monitoring my business struggles and ensuring that rent payments would remain current despite my apparent difficulties. Margaret had told Mr. Peterson that the family was implementing proper oversight to address my business management challenges and prevent any future financial problems. She suggested that family involvement would provide the stability and professional guidance necessary to ensure long-term lease compliance and successful operations. This revelation was particularly shocking because it represented direct interference with my most critical business relationship. The landlord's confidence in my ability to maintain the lease was essential for long-term planning and potential expansion. Margaret's unauthorized communications could influence his decisions about rent increases, lease renewals, or property development that would affect my clinic's future. Worse still, her representation suggested that I was financially unstable and needed family supervision to maintain basic business obligations. This characterization could damage my credibility with other vendor suppliers and professional partners if Mr. Peterson shared her assessments with others in the local business community. The pattern of escalating interference was becoming clear. Sarah's fake reviews, fraudulent insurance claims, and networking misrepresentations were not isolated incidents, but part of a coordinated campaign to create crisis situations that would justify family control of my business. Margaret and Robert were not simply responding to problems, but actively creating conditions that would force me to accept their intervention as the only viable solution. 2 days after discovering Margaret's unauthorized landlord communications, I received what seemed like a peace offering. Her voice on the phone was warmer than it had been in months, as she invited me to Sunday dinner at their house. She mentioned wanting to move past recent difficulties and focus on rebuilding family unity during these challenging times. The invitation felt significant because family dinners had become rare and uncomfortable during our ongoing conflicts. Margaret's suggestion that we needed to come together and support each other through adversity resonated with my exhaustion from months of fighting and stress. She specifically mentioned preparing my childhood favorite meal pot roast with rosemary potatoes and honey-glazed carrots. Despite my wariness about their motives, the prospect of a genuine family reconciliation was appealing. I missed the closeness we had shared before business conflicts created such deep divisions. The idea of returning to normal family relationships even temporarily offered emotional relief from the constant tension and suspicion that had dominated our interactions. I arrived at their suburban home on Sunday afternoon to find an unexpectedly formal atmosphere. The dining room table was set with their finest china and crystal stemware usually reserved for major holidays or special celebrations. Candles were lit despite the daylight hours, and fresh flowers from Margaret's garden created an elegant centerpiece that suggested careful planning and special significance. Sarah was already present dressed in professional attire that seemed oddly formal for a casual family meal. Instead of her typical artistic clothing and bohemian accessories, she wore a conservative navy dress with minimal jewelry that made her appear more mature and business-oriented. Her demeanor was unusually subdued, lacking the animated energy that normally characterized her personality. Robert appeared equally formal, wearing his best business suit despite being at home on a weekend. This was the same dark gray suit he wore to important client meetings and formal business events, signaling that he viewed this gathering as something more significant than a family dinner. The unusual formality created an atmosphere of anticipation and unease that contrasted sharply with Margaret's casual invitation. Everyone seemed to be playing predetermined roles, rather than engaging in natural family interactions, suggesting that careful planning and coordination had preceded my arrival. During the appetizer course of shrimp cocktail and cheese platters, conversation remained superficial and carefully neutral. Margaret discussed recent neighborhood developments and upcoming community events, while Robert mentioned general business news and stock market performance. Sarah contributed little to these discussions, seeming nervous, and frequently checking her phone as if expecting important communications. The main course featured my requested pot roast, prepared exactly as I remembered from childhood, with tender meat and perfectly seasoned vegetables. Margaret had clearly invested significant effort in creating this meal, remembering specific preparation details and flavor preferences that demonstrated genuine care and attention. However, the conversation remained strangely constrained throughout dinner, lacking the natural flow and spontaneous interaction typical of our family gatherings. Each topic seemed carefully chosen to avoid controversy, and any comment that might relate to business or recent conflicts was quickly redirected to safer subjects. As we finished dessert Margaret's homemade apple pie with vanilla ice cream, the atmosphere shifted noticeably. Robert cleared his throat deliberately and announced that they needed to discuss important family business matters that could no longer be postponed. His tone became formal and authoritative, resembling his approach to professional negotiations rather than family conversations. Margaret rose from her seat and walked to the kitchen counter, retrieving a thick manila folder that had been placed there before my arrival. The folder was substantial, clearly containing multiple documents, and labeled with official-looking tabs and organizational markers that suggested professional legal preparation. Sarah's nervous demeanor intensified as the folder was placed on the dining room table. She finally made direct eye contact with me for the first time during the evening, her expression mixing guilt with anticipation and what appeared to be resigned determination. Robert opened the folder carefully, revealing what were clearly legal documents prepared by a professional attorney. The papers were printed on official letterhead and organized with colored tabs and page markers that indicated comprehensive legal research and detailed preparation. He began explaining that he had spent considerable time consulting with Harold Martinez about family business structures that would resolve our ongoing conflicts while protecting everyone's interests. The documents represented months of legal research and strategic planning designed to create a framework for successful collaboration and shared prosperity. The partnership agreement was professionally drafted with detailed financial projections, management responsibility divisions, and profit-sharing formulas. Sarah's role was comprehensively defined, including client relations oversight, social media marketing management, vendor negotiations, and staff hiring decisions. The document allocated her equal compensation despite having made no financial investment and possessing no relevant professional licensing. Margaret's presentation emphasized the protective benefits of this arrangement for my interests, as well as Sarah's needs. She explained how family partnership would provide management support, reduce my workload, and create opportunities for business expansion that would benefit everyone involved. The profit-sharing structure gave Sarah immediate access to 50% of clinic income while requiring no upfront capital investment or assumption of existing debt obligations. The agreement also included provisions for her to receive equal ownership stakes in any future business expansion or additional clinic locations. Robert pressured for immediate signature approval, explaining that Harold had structured everything according to Colorado partnership law, and any delay could complicate legal implementation. He mentioned that their Aunt Linda was prepared to invest $20,000 in clinic expansion once the partnership was properly formalized and documented. The emotional manipulation reached its peak as Margaret reminded me of family loyalty and the financial support they had provided during my education and early career development. She suggested that accepting Sarah as a partner represented returning the investment and care they had given me while also ensuring Sarah's financial stability and professional fulfillment. Sarah finally spoke, delivering what was clearly a prepared emotional appeal about her years of financial struggle and her need for meaningful work that would provide long-term security. She promised to dedicate herself completely to clinic success and help achieve growth beyond what I could accomplish working alone. Robert added that successful families work together rather than allowing individual pride to create permanent divisions. He suggested that my resistance to partnership demonstrated selfishness and ingratitude that could damage family relationships permanently if not addressed through this generous compromise. The pressure was overwhelming and coordinated, clearly designed to create emotional and psychological conditions that would make refusal seem unreasonable and harmful to family unity. They had prepared responses to anticipated objections and framed their demands as generous offers rather than opportunistic exploitation. As the intensity built toward what they expected would be my capitulation, Sarah reached for the pen beside the documents, preparing to add her signature and expecting me to follow her lead in formalizing their predetermined arrangement. But instead of accepting the pen or reaching for the papers, I stood calmly and walked to my purse in the living room. I retrieved my own briefcase, a professional leather portfolio they had never seen before, and returned to the dining room with deliberate composure. Opening the briefcase with careful precision, I removed a thick document of my own and placed it squarely on the table beside their partnership proposal. The papers bore official legal letterhead and were organized with the same professional markers and tabs that characterized serious legal preparation. "Before we discuss your proposal," I said quietly, looking directly at each family member in turn, "let me show you Clause 3.2. The confident expressions on their faces immediately transformed into confusion and growing alarm as they realized I had been anticipating this moment and preparing my own legal strategy far longer than they had imagined possible. The document I placed on the table was a comprehensive business protection agreement that Jessica Brooks had been developing for months, specifically designed to address attempted family coercion and establish legal consequences for interference with my clinic operations. Clause 3.2 outlined detailed documentation of every manipulation attempt and sabotage incident, creating a legal foundation for serious consequences if the interference continued. Robert's confident demeanor crumbled as he read the official letterhead and recognized the professional formatting of serious legal documentation. His face drained of color while he scanned the first page, which included detailed chronological listings of family interference incidents with dates, times, and supporting evidence. I began explaining calmly that I had been meticulously documenting their manipulation campaign since discovering Sarah's fake review sabotage months earlier. The legal file contained screenshots of every negative post, copies of fraudulent insurance documentation, witness statements about Sarah's unauthorized networking activities, and recordings of phone conversations where Margaret and Robert discussed pressuring me into unwanted business arrangements. The most damaging evidence involved Margaret's secret meetings with my landlord, Mr. Peterson. Jessica had recommended hiring a private investigator to document these unauthorized communications, and we had obtained recordings that captured Margaret suggesting I was financially unstable and needed family oversight to maintain basic business obligations. These recordings constituted intentional interference with critical business relationships and potential defamation that could result in significant financial damages. Margaret's representations to my landlord could influence lease renewal decisions, rent increase determinations, and his willingness to accommodate future expansion needs. Sarah's blog monetization strategy provided additional evidence of calculated deception and exploitation. The legal documentation included printouts showing how she had generated income through affiliate marketing while using my clinic's location and success story as content foundation, essentially profiting from my business without permission or compensation. Her social media presence and speaking engagements created further liability through false representation of business relationships. Jessica's investigation had revealed that several local business contacts believed Sarah was already my established partner based on her networking presentations and online content. The insurance fraud attempt received particular attention in the legal filing. Our investigation had uncovered evidence that Sarah researched workers' compensation claim procedures extensively before filing her false report, including browser history, showing visits to legal advice websites and forums, discussing injury claim strategies. This research proved premeditation rather than desperate mistake, supporting potential criminal fraud charges if I chose to pursue prosecution through the district attorney's office. The documented evidence could result in felony charges carrying substantial fines and possible imprisonment. Robert attempted to dismiss my legal preparation as unnecessary escalation, suggesting that family conflicts should be resolved through communication rather than legal threats. He claimed their intentions were protective and supportive, motivated by concern for my well-being, rather than self-serving financial interests. But I continued reading from Clause 3.2, which established a formal cease and desist order, prohibiting all family members from any further interference with clinic operations. The agreement specified that additional manipulation attempts would result in immediate legal action, including restraining orders, financial damages claims, and possible criminal prosecution. The document also required comprehensive restitution for previous damage. Sarah must publicly retract all false claims about clinic involvement, remove monetized content using my business name and location, and contact every professional contact she had misled about partnership status to provide written corrections of her misrepresentations. Margaret was required to provide formal written statements to Mr. Peterson and any other business contacts clarifying that her previous communications were unauthorized and did not represent my actual financial condition or business management capabilities. She must also commit to zero future contact with my business relationships without explicit written permission. Margaret became increasingly defensive, arguing that everything they had done was motivated by love and genuine concern for both daughters' welfare. She insisted they were trying to solve problems and create opportunities rather than cause harm or exploit my success for selfish gain. Robert added that families should resolve conflicts through private discussion and compromise rather than involving attorneys and legal threats that could create permanent divisions. He suggested that my legal preparation demonstrated distrust and hostility that was damaging to family relationships. I responded by detailing the comprehensive financial damage their interference had caused to my clinic and personal finances. The fake review campaign had cost approximately $8,000 in lost revenue from canceled appointments and reduced client inquiries during the reputation recovery period. Legal fees for defending against Sarah's fraudulent insurance claim totaled $12,000, depleting my emergency business fund and forcing me to pursue additional borrowing that increased monthly operating expenses. The ongoing stress and crisis management had also contributed to health problems requiring medical attention and missed work days. The total financial impact exceeded $30,000 in direct and indirect costs, representing nearly 6 months of clinic income during my vulnerable startup period. This calculation did not include opportunity costs from lost business expansion possibilities and delayed growth initiatives. Beyond financial damage, I described the psychological impact of months of family betrayal and constant anxiety about additional sabotage attempts. The stress had created sleep disruption, panic attacks, and health symptoms that interfered with patient care and daily functioning. Living with constant suspicion about family motives had forced me to question every business relationship and doubt my own judgment about personal versus professional boundaries. The emotional toll of fighting family members while trying to build a healthcare practice had been devastating to my mental health and overall well-being. Sarah's composure finally collapsed completely as the full scope of documented evidence and potential consequences became clear. She sobbed uncontrollably while begging for forgiveness, admitting that jealousy and financial desperation had motivated her sabotage attempts, but insisting she never intended such serious harm to my career or personal life. She offered to do anything necessary to make amends, including public apologies, financial compensation if possible, and complete withdrawal from any involvement with my business or professional relationships. Her emotional breakdown seemed genuine, reflecting real understanding of how her actions had violated trust and endangered my livelihood. Margaret and Robert exchanged increasingly worried glances as they realized the legal documentation was comprehensive and professionally prepared. This wasn't an emotional outburst or empty threat designed to win an argument. I had built an extensive legal case with evidence that could result in serious financial and criminal consequences for all of them. The silence stretched uncomfortably as they absorbed the reality that their manipulation campaign had been thoroughly documented and could result in prosecution financial judgments and permanent legal restrictions on their behavior. Their confident assumption that family loyalty would prevent serious consequences had been completely miscalculated. As the shock of my legal preparation settled, I revealed the final element of my strategy. The briefcase contained a second document that represented an alternative path forward if they were genuinely interested in legitimate family involvement rather than manipulative exploitation of my success. I had prepared a formal employment offer that would allow Sarah to earn a legitimate role in my clinic through honest effort and demonstrated competence. The position required specific qualifications, probationary periods, and performance-based advancement opportunities, but it provided a pathway to genuine partnership if she proved capable and trustworthy. However, the offer required complete acknowledgement of past wrongdoing, signed agreements about appropriate professional boundaries, and absolute acceptance of my sole ownership and final authority in all business decisions. The choice was entirely theirs. Face legal consequences for continued interference, or earn legitimate involvement through honest work and respect for my leadership. The ball was now in their court, and the decision would reveal whether their claims of family love and support were genuine or simply manipulation tactics designed to exploit my success for their own financial benefit. The silence following my alternative proposal felt endless, as each family member processed the dramatic shift in power dynamics and available options. Margaret stared at the legal documents spread across her dining room table, while Robert slowly read through the employment offer with growing comprehension of its implications. Sarah continued crying softly, but her tears had transformed from self-pity to what appeared to be genuine remorse and understanding. Robert was the first to speak, his voice subdued and thoughtful, as he acknowledged that their approach had been fundamentally wrong, regardless of their stated intentions. He admitted that treating my clinic as family property had demonstrated profound disrespect for my education years of hard work and substantial financial investment in building the business. His apology was specific and comprehensive, addressing his involvement in pressuring me toward unwanted partnerships, his failure to respect my business autonomy, and his particularly damaging decision to involve outside parties like Mr. Peterson without my knowledge or consent. He recognized how these actions had betrayed my trust and potentially damaged critical professional relationships. Margaret struggled significantly more with accepting responsibility, initially defending their actions as expressions of parental love and concern for both daughters' welfare. She maintained that fear of Sarah's continued financial failures had motivated inappropriate involvement in my business success, framing their interference as misguided protection rather than calculated exploitation. However, as I patiently explained how each manipulation attempt had damaged my professional reputation, client relationships, and personal well-being, Margaret began understanding the distinction between genuine support and controlling behavior. She tearfully admitted that anxiety about Sarah's future had led to boundary violations that were harmful regardless of their protective intentions. Sarah's response proved most significant for long-term family healing and her personal growth. She acknowledged without reservation that jealousy and entitlement had motivated her sabotage attempts, and she fully recognized how her actions could have destroyed my career and financial stability. Rather than asking for immediate forgiveness, she requested the opportunity to prove through consistent actions that she could change her approach to family relationships and personal responsibility. She expressed genuine shame about the fake reviews, fraudulent insurance claims, and networking misrepresentations that had put my professional license and business survival at risk. The employment offer required Sarah to complete a certified medical office administration program at the local community college, pass comprehensive background checks, and work part-time for 6 months before consideration for full-time employment. Her starting salary would be entry-level with performance-based increases tied to measurable contributions to clinic operations and patient satisfaction. Most importantly, she would report to me as any other employee, receiving no special treatment or family privileges that might affect workplace decisions or professional standards. The arrangement would be strictly merit-based, with advancement opportunities dependent on demonstrated competence and reliability rather than family relationships. Margaret and Robert were required to sign comprehensive agreements, acknowledging my complete business autonomy and promising zero future interference with clinic operations, professional relationships, or strategic decisions. They committed to correcting any previous misrepresentations with third parties and supporting my authority in all professional matters. They also agreed to participate in family therapy sessions designed to address underlying dynamics that had contributed to this crisis. A professional counselor would help us explore healthy boundaries between family relationships and individual autonomy, ensuring that love and support could coexist with respect for personal choices and professional independence. The legal protection documents remained in place as insurance against future problems, but I expressed genuine hope that they would never be necessary. I explained that establishing clear boundaries and consequences actually made authentic family relationships possible because everyone understood expectations and accountability. Over the following months, our family began the slow process of rebuilding trust through consistent actions rather than promises or emotional appeals. Sarah enrolled in the medical administration program and discovered genuine aptitude for healthcare logistics, patient coordination, and insurance processing. Her natural creativity found positive expression in developing efficient organizational systems, designing patient education materials, and creating welcoming environments that enhance the clinic experience. She approached her studies with dedication I had never seen before, earning high grades and receiving excellent feedback from instructors. Margaret and Robert attended weekly family therapy sessions where they explored how their parenting approaches had affected both daughters differently. They learned to appreciate my independence as a strength rather than a threat while supporting Sarah's growth without enabling destructive patterns. The therapy process helped them understand how their attempts to solve Sarah's problems through my success had damaged both daughters and created artificial competition instead of genuine collaboration. They developed new ways to offer support that respected individual autonomy and encouraged personal responsibility. Family dinners gradually became enjoyable again as manipulation gave way to honest communication and mutual respect. We could discuss business challenges and personal goals without hidden agendas or pressure tactics, creating space for authentic relationships to develop. The clinic thrived under clear leadership and improved family dynamics. Sarah's legitimate contributions enhanced operations significantly, and her growing expertise in medical administration opened opportunities for expansion and improved efficiency. She earned my professional respect through consistent performance and genuine commitment to patient care. After 18 months, I was able to offer Sarah a promotion to office manager position based entirely on her demonstrated competence and value to clinic operations. Her transformation from jealous saboteur to trusted employee and respected family member provided deep satisfaction for everyone involved. We eventually opened a second clinic location with Sarah managing administrative operations for both facilities, while I focused on clinical care and strategic development. The expansion succeeded because it was based on genuine capability and mutual respect, rather than family obligation or manipulation. My key insight from this difficult journey was that loving families sometimes need legal boundaries to prevent love from becoming control. Setting clear expectations and consequences doesn't destroy relationships. It creates space for authentic respect and genuine support to flourish. Protecting myself from manipulation was actually an act of love that created opportunity for real relationships to grow. By refusing to enable their destructive behavior patterns, I forced my family to develop healthier approaches to conflict resolution and mutual support. The clinic now serves over 300 regular clients across both locations, with Sarah managing a staff of 6 administrative and support personnel. Our success is built on professional competence, clear boundaries, and family relationships based on respect rather than manipulation. True family strength comes not from blind loyalty or shared ownership of individual achievements, but from each member developing personal integrity and choosing to support each other's authentic success. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is refusing to let them damage themselves through harmful behavior toward you. The most satisfying aspect of our resolution is that everyone genuinely earned their current position through effort and growth, rather than receiving undeserved benefits through manipulation or family pressure. Sarah takes pride in her legitimate role, and Margaret and Robert beam with authentic pride in both daughters' accomplishments. Before I close, I want to hear your thoughts on family boundaries and business relationships. Have you ever faced pressure from family members who wanted to benefit from your success without contributing to the work? How did you handle situations where love and manipulation became confused? Please share your experiences in the comments below. Your stories might help others facing similar challenges. If this story resonated with you, please like this video to help others find it when they're struggling with family business conflicts. Subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming manipulation and building authentic relationships. And please share this with anyone who might benefit from understanding how legal boundaries can actually strengthen family bonds. Thank you for listening to my journey from family manipulation to genuine partnership. I hope it encourages you to protect your achievements while keeping your heart open to authentic family love. Remember that setting boundaries isn't about building walls. It's about creating healthy space where real relationships can thrive.